Namaste ji. In our last reading, we learned that in order to attain glory and radiance to God, we need to, while worshiping Him, understand and realize the 5 great unions that the Almighty God has created for all human beings, where one views God, one as the cause of the earth, moon, and other wonderful planets, as the cause of the sun and other luminous bodies, as the cause of all the wonderful vidya, as the cause of the offsprings, and as the cause of wonderful bodies of various friends. I would like to thank Acharya ji, Vinay Vidyalankar ji, and Dhirendra Uncle for helping me better understand this topic. And this topic's way above my level, but I've tried my best, so let's recap. So what's the purpose of these Sanhitas? A Sanhita is a union, right? So the main purpose of the Sanhita is to get Brahmajnan, which is knowledge of God. And then eventually, because of that Brahmajnan, we get moksha, which is salvation. So as I said before, there are 5 great unions, or Sanhitas, which are Adhilokam, Adhijyotisham, Adhividyam, Adhiprajam, and Adhyatmam. So first of all, before understanding these 4 Sanhitas, unions, we need to understand the 4 main parts of each Sanhita. These 4 main parts are Purvarup, Uttarrup, Sandhi, and Sandhan. Purvarup is the root, the source form. Uttarrup is the second form. Sandhi is the end result that we get from the collaboration of both of these forms. And Sandhan is the medium, which is the cause of this union. So Sanhita number 1, Adhilok. The first form is Prithvi, the earth. Second form is the celestial regions, which are the many galaxies and stars in the universe besides the earth. Now, the end result of this is space. Now, when we see this, we think, excuse me? How do the celestial regions and earth come together to make empty space? And you know what? Directly, they don't. However, let's think about it this way. We have happiness and we have sadness. Can anyone here say that sadness created happiness? No. However, if we look at it this way, okay? So, if there was no sadness, we would never realize the importance, the individuality of happiness, right? If everything was happiness, it's just happiness. What does that mean? Sadness highlights the importance of happiness with a contrast. Similarly, if there was everything in this world was empty space, then we would have no importance of space, right? Right now, space is something else, Prithvi is something else, and the other regions is something else. So in a way, the other regions have boxed space into an individual thing that we can call empty space. And now, medium of union is Vayu. This is because Vayu means air, Vayu means gas. Vayu is generally the medium of many things. Sound travels through air particles. Waves travel through air particles. The medium of union of earth and celestial regions is Vayu. So, the mantra is Athadhilokam Prithvi Purvarupam Dev Uttarrupam Akasha Sandhi Vayu Sandhanam. The first wondrous union is Adhilok, which is the universe. In this beautiful Adhilok, the first form is earth, a residence of all living beings, and the second form is the Dyo, the celestial regions. These two are united in Akash, or the end result of that is Akash, and they are united by Vayu. Now let's move to Union 2, Sanhita number 2, which is Adhijyotish. Adhijyotish is the collaboration of 2 things. So form number 1 is the source form, fire, and form number 2 is the sun. So the sun is made up of fire, so fire is source of the sun. The sun and the fire come together to create water. Now that sounds weird. Fire is usually considered the opposite of water, right? So here though we mean water in the form of water vapor. Anything coming to mind with sun, water vapor, clouds? Let's see if you're right. So, and the medium of union of these two is electricity. So if anyone here was thinking of the water cycle, you were right. We already know that water is always related to fire here on Earth. Because, when you cook water, fire leads to water. The sun, as shown here, relates to water because of the water vapor rising into the air because of the sun and the water cycle. So in they are both the cause of water vapor in their own ways. So Samhita number 2, Adhijyotish, Athadi Jyotisham, Agni Purva Rupam, Aditya Uttara Rupam, Apaha Sandhi, Vaidyutaha Sandhanam, Ityadhi Jyotisham. The second wonderful union is Adhijyotish, luminous objects, where the first form is fire and the second form is the sun. Water is the result between the forms, and electricity is what brings the earth, the sun, and fire together. Third union is Adhividya. This one's a bit more abstract. So first form is the teacher, second form is the student, and the end result is knowledge. Now here's one question. Didn't knowledge already exist before the teacher and student? Before the teacher started teaching the student, the knowledge itself already existed, right? And the answer is yes. Yes, it did. So how did they create knowledge? Now, let's see. A phone is made of metal, right? And metal comes from metal ore. So how can we say that someone created a phone when the material for the phone was already there? So the phone wasn't created, it was just converted into a more usable and consumable form, which we call creating. Similarly, the knowledge was not created, but the teacher converted that knowledge into a more consumable, a more usable form for that student, who could then take it in. And then the discourse of a student, of a teacher, is the medium between the student and the teacher, which later is the cause of the creation of knowledge in the student. Samhita 3 Adhividya, Athadi Vidyam, Acharya Purva Rupam, Ante Vasyuttara Rupam, Vidya Sandhi, Pravachanam Sandhanam, Ityadhi Vidyam. The fourth great union or Sandhi is Adhipraja. The first form is the mother, the second form is the father, and the end result is the offspring. The medium of union is the process of giving birth. So mother and father come together through the process of giving birth to create offspring. So that one's pretty straightforward, right? So fourth one, Adhipraja, Athadi Prajam, Mata Purva Rupam, Pita Uttara Rupam, Praja Sandhi, Prajananam Sandhanam, Ityadhi Prajam. And now for the last Samhita. The last Samhita is Adhyatma. So form number 1 in Adhyatma is Karmendriyas. There are 5 Karmendriyas: the hands, the feet, the 2 genitals, and the voice. So the second form is the 5 Jnanendriyas, which are the senses of knowledge. These are eyes, nose, ear, tongue, and skin. So some of you may be thinking, wait, so we said in the beginning that the first form is the source form. So how are Karmendriyas the source of Jnanendriyas? Shouldn't knowledge be the source of actions and not the other way around? Isn't knowledge more important? And it is more important. However, knowledge is gained through actions, through trial and error. And however much knowledge we have about Vedic Scriptures, etc., if we can't act on that knowledge, then there's not that much worth for the knowledge. So knowledge is important. But for that knowledge, we have to perform the actions first to gain the knowledge. So that's why Karmendriyas come first. The result of the cooperation between the senses of knowledge and the senses of action is the voice. The end result is voice. So how? Well, let's see. To speak, you have to have knowledge of something. That's where knowledge comes in. And speaking itself is an action. So knowledge and action. The medium of union is tongue. And here's the last question. So how does Adhyatma come into the topic of soul? Like, how does the tongue come into the topic of soul? Because Atma means soul, right? So where does tongue come in here? So Vani here does not just mean voice. Vani can mean Shabd. Shabd is written things. Shabd is voice. Shabd is many things, right? So here's an example. We want to understand a person and how he feels. Would you rather have him sit in front of you and just have him make expressions? Or would you rather have him actually say something to you so that you can better understand him? So the voice is his way of expressing himself, the way that we can read a person. That's why voice is the expression of soul. Number 5, Adhyatma. Athadhyatmam, Adhara Hanu Purvarupam, Uttara Hanu Uttararupam, Vak Sandhi, Jibha Sandhanam, Ityadhyatmamam. The last amazing Sanhita is Adhyatma, spiritual. In this, the first form is senses of action, which is Karmendriya. The second form is the Jnanendriya. The faculty of speech is the end result between the two. The tongue expresses through voice, hence the tongue is the act of placing them together. So last, itima mahan samhitaha, ya evameta mahan samhita vyakhyata, veda sanhiyate, prajaya pashubhi brahma varchase nandradyena suvargyena lokena. All of the above are great 5 samhitas. He or she who knows them as expounded above and realizes the glory of God thereby, he or she obtains progeny, prosperity, and radiance of holiness, food, and the world of happiness. Next week we will, through the worship of God, move to the life of true karmas. Thank you.